All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome everyone to our yet another session of the Enterprise Wednesdays. Yeah, we've been going strong since May this year on many sessions of Enterprise Wednesdays, and this session again is another spectacular waiting session for you. I want to thank the speaker for the day, Ganesh, Mr. Ganesh Mahendranathan, who has taken his time from his busy day in out. Entrepreneurs they work 24/7 around the clock, and they're always thinking. Unlike us, sometimes we go to sleep. Uh, and I think Ganesh is going to bring a very insightful talk on his experience to where he has gotten to today. And I don't want to take too much limelight taken away from my partner in crime at every Enterprise Wednesday, uh, Mr. Dash, our current entrepreneur in residence, who has always been the captain of the entrepreneurship events in terms of especially our series, yeah, our our Enterprise Wednesdays and our CEO CTO series. And Dash, I would like to thank your time today. I also like to thank the team behind the scene. So all students and whoever's watching every Wednesday, not every Wednesday, every fortnight Wednesdays, don't get to know what the team behind the scene does. So at this point in time, I have reminded myself to thank them. Yeah, so I'd like to thank Dr. Janita, who has worked tirelessly on broadcasting and making sure that all correct information on our speakers is passed on. I'd like to thank Gary Ling, yeah, services who controls the platform for today's session every two Wednesdays. And moving forward, I'd like to honestly thank the enterprise executive. For those who don't know, yeah, enterprise executive started officially in May this year, but has been in the works since March this year, but has always been an ingredient of offering something new based on technology and innovation. And we have done a lot for our students, gotten our students educated, exposed, and skilled with becoming innovators, and some have gone on to become very successful entrepreneurs as well. So today's session is a very insightful event in the form of Enterprise Wednesdays that allows an expert from the industry, just like Mr. Ganesh, to come and share his view and his experiences. So I'm going to pass this over to Dash. Dash, over to you, and have a good session together with Mr. Ganesh, who's going to be a wonderful speaker today. Yeah. So thank you. Over to you, Dash.
Thank you, Prof.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Prof. Thank you again to Ganesh for being with us. To
Pleasure
all
is
the
mine.
students, thank you for being tuning in to the 10th Enterprise Wednesday. Enterprise Wednesday happens on the second and fourth of every Wednesday of every month. Like what Professor Vinesh said just now, we bring in entrepreneurs, corporate innovators, people who have put their hands and dirtied their hands in startups to come and share their insights, you know, and the know-how to entrepreneurs in APU or aspiring entrepreneurs in APU. Enterprise Wednesday is one of the many programs that we do under Enterprise at APU. We also have the CEO and CTO series. And this weekend, we are going to have Startup Weekend at APU, which will be run online. And we also have, for students with ideas or nascent ideas, we will have an Idea Accelerator, which is an 8-week program. And those who have stress tested their idea at the Idea Accelerator will move on to venture building. So this is like an inspiration session where entrepreneurs come and speak. So Mr. Ganesh Mahendranathan is no stranger to me, a very young, dynamic, smart enterpriser. I have met him in many situations. He's worked in the big four firms, dirtied his hands in startups, and we want to hear. Now he's a corporate innovator. He's in a bank, innovating, creating a dent in the innovation space. Always a pleasure to speak with Ganesh. He always has this beautiful smile. And Ganesh, take it away. Tell us a little bit about yourself. What got you
Awesome.
here?
Awesome. Thanks, Dash, for the kind introduction. I think if I were to find a point to start, I think I'll start with, growing up I came up in a fairly traditional background. My dad was a government servant. My mom was a housewife. So growing up, we were under immense pressure to get straight A ones actually, if you wanted to get overseas scholarships. And I still remember the first time I had my SPM results. I scrolled down, I saw 11 A1s, 1 B3, and most people would be excited, but for me, when I actually saw that, I realized I don't have a chance to get an overseas scholarship, and because that was the mindset that we were brought up. You got to get a good job, you need to get an overseas education. And so my goal was always to go to the best universities, and I worked really hard in school to do that. And so after that, not getting any overseas scholarship, it really hit me hard. And that's when I started diving into books. And I remember this book I read by Tim Ferriss called 4 Hour Work Week, right? And he spoke about how to really leverage business opportunities by understanding different markets, understanding where you can get economics, advantage in economics, and find customers in different countries where they have higher, better dollar value. And that really got me interested in entrepreneurship. And so I went to Nilai University at that point in time on a full scholarship, and that is when I started my entrepreneurship journey. I did some stuff which was not exactly legal. I was renting cars monthly, and I would rent it out daily. And my target market at that time were party students that would go to KL on the weekends. So I knew to break even for every car, I had to make sure that 12 days was taken up by customers. So and I didn't have money to put the upfront payment. So I had a friend from Uganda, this African guy with a lot of money. He was like, let me finance the cars, you just find customers. So that was my first experience. And we had a fair bit of challenges, and I decided to diversify. So that's when I got into tutoring, and I, from that 3 years, I managed to save up 60,000 ringgit. And I spent 40 on a down payment on a townhouse, which honestly, looking back, I probably wouldn't have made that investment. I don't think properties is where, but don't take my investment advice, please. And the other 20,000 I invested in my first trip to go overseas. I went on a holiday. I watched a Champions League final between United, Barcelona, and I did a full travel, and that for me was priceless. So that was how I started my entrepreneurship journey, actually. Yeah.
Ganesh, what did you do at Nilai College? Why, with so many A's, why didn't you try to find a way to get out
So,
of go overseas, or do something?
Absolutely. So I made a decision because at that point in time, my sister, she had conditional offers from LSE, UCL, and King's to do law, and she didn't get a scholarship, and she ended up getting a place in UM. And at that point in time, I didn't want my parents to sell properties to send me abroad. I was like, you know what? I don't need that, right? We can take a different path, because otherwise let's say you go to Oxford, do physics or whatever, become a management consultant at BCG, and then your life is set, right? Like that is a normal trajectory. And I felt it really humbled me, the fact that I went to this university and I met amazing people, and I feel like I've become a better person as a result of that, because I was very arrogant in school, thinking that I was better than everyone else, and this was a really good grounding, I would say, to be less judgmental. Yeah.
So how did you end up in one of the big fours, and what brought you there? What did you do there?
Yeah. So that was an interesting story, actually, because so I did accounting finance because apparently that was what you got to do. I spoke, and after you do accounting finance, you're like, where do you go? You go to a big four.
How did you become entrepreneurial doing accounting and finance?
Very good question. For me, that was a means to an end, and I saw accounting finance as people wouldn't judge you so much for where you go in terms of university. People look at your qualifications as an accountant. So I felt I wouldn't be judged. Hence, accounting finance seemed like, every business needs to do, you need to balance the books, right? So that was, the decision I made at the time. Um, and I had an opportunity to join the startup called Group Small. This was at the time Kylie
Kylie and
and
Joel.
yeah, Joel. And I remember talking to my parents about that, and they were like, "What is Group Small? What is this? Just go to PwC," and that was the end of it, right? So at that point, I didn't take a risk, and startups were that popular back then, and I felt, you know what, I need some experience, I need to make some savings before I can make that jump. So that was the thought process there.
I see. So you moved out. You went into Group Small and then you left Group Small
No,
to
I
go
didn't.
into.
I went into PwC
Oh,
straight away. Yeah,
oh dear. Group
yeah,
Small would have been far more exciting. Kylie and Joel were kicking ass at that time, and selling,
yeah,
and they
yeah.
sold, and they sold to Groupon.
Yep,
You know,
yep,
they sold to Groupon. Yeah. Oh my God. That they were
yeah,
making, they were putting a dent in the universe at that time.
absolutely,
Yeah. Oh, and
absolutely.
and yeah, yeah. So and then you went to join an accounting practice.
Yep. So I did audit
Yeah.
for a year, and that was, I actually realized this wasn't for me within 3 months, and
Mm.
that tipping point was actually, my client was this large telco, and it was very intense, the work as an auditor. And I was in the office, I think at about 11:30 at night, and I was saying, if I were to die tomorrow, you know, is this where I want to be? You know, doing some some vouching,
Ticking,
and
ticking,
yeah,
ticking.
it was no brainer. And at that point, I didn't have a team, which was very, it was very, how I would say, like, everyone was pretty calculative, this team, and everyone's sort of working in the different silos. And I didn't really enjoy that. And that's when I made the move to KPMG to join the consulting practice.
And how long were you there at KPMG? I think we
And
have.
yeah,
Go on, go on.
so at KPMG, that was interesting. So, so I had a pretty bad experience there too, right? This is I'm just being transparent and just sharing. So remember I was in a meeting room, and everyone was speaking in Mandarin around me, and at that point in time, I felt like this is just disrespectful, and I walked out of the room, and I walked into the partner's office, and I said, this is not something I expect from an international firm, you know, to have that. And I thought I was standing up for what I believed in, and being principled, but that essentially just put a target on my back, and there was a lot of passive aggressive culture challenges that I faced. It was just different values, and it was things that I felt it was really terrible. Like, you would work, let's say you would get your work done, and when it comes to evaluation, you realize they will pick on something that happened 3 months ago. There was no constant feedback, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm sure a lot of things has changed, but I think in terms of accounting, we have similar background. I became completely unemployable after I said, "Hey, this doesn't
yep,
work for me,"
yep,
and this green ticks and Baki bin card doesn't work for me.
yep,
So
yep.
that's good. That's good. So how did you? So you were entrepreneurial in the university itself. You did
Correct.
rented cars and all that. So where did this? You said your father was a government servant, mom was a housewife. Where did this entrepreneurial flair, the craziness come about? From
I
where
would
did
say
that
it
come about?
comes back to Tim Ferriss.
Tim Ferriss.
Tim
Yeah,
Ferriss.
I
Yeah,
know. I know the book, the 4 Hour Work Week. I know the book very well. Yes, and so it came from that.
yeah, and it
So
was really, yep. Sorry.
go on, go
So
on,
I
Ganesh.
view,
It's your show. You talk.
yeah. So I view entrepreneurship. It's really a creative enabler, right? For you to pursue meaningful projects in an autonomous
Mhm.
fashion, to provide the lifestyle and freedom to do the things that I love, right? And ultimately, the key to financial freedom is really moving, from an active income base to a passive income. And entrepreneurship, if you get it right, helps to accelerate that process.
So do you advise? What's your advice to the young people about
So
entrepreneurship? Do you think they
yeah,
should jump into
so,
entrepreneurship when they're in
so,
university?
right. So for me, it depends on a couple of factors, right? It depends. If you have sort of well-to-do parents that can actually, support you, and you're living with your parents without incurring much expenses, then you should actually take that journey, take a risk early on, because you have so many. That's when you have a lot of energy, a lot of drive, and that is when you should do it. Like, so I did it first time at KPMG. I joined my partner Lingesh and to do Drink Entrepreneurs. So this
Tell
was
us
really
about drink entrepreneurs. Tell us more about drink
yeah.
entrepreneurs.
So my partner Lingesh, he basically met the co-founder of Drink Entrepreneurs, this guy from France. So he set it up. It's essentially just we host drinks at a location. We invite entrepreneurs or people that are professionals that are interested in dabbling into entrepreneurship at a gathering, and they just meet, have drinks, right? So there was, and what we would get from the bars was just a discount, like a 20% discount for everyone. So there was no revenue model; it was just a community effort, and for us, we saw it as, hey, we're doing this once a month. It's like a party, right? And then we realized we started growing and started getting traction, and that's when we started saying, hey, let's operationalize this. Let's start. We've tested it, we've done some proper testing, we've gotten feedback from attendees. Let's make this bigger. So we set up a company and we started charging venues just to test the market, right? So we started with, hey, can we charge you 1,000 ringgit fixed fee? And they said okay. I was like, wow, should we have asked for 2,000? And that's when we started going up the value chain, right? And the last event we had at Kio, so we ended up making money. So we had a free ticket signed up, and then we sold for additional tickets. We got sponsors, we sold tables, we made markups and bottles. Like we made
I
30
was there.
grand.
I
Yeah.
was there that you went.
So that was a 30,000 ringgit night for us, and I was like, and it became an entry point. Like we were just a community hosting events for the community, but then we became an event organizer on the side. Like startups started approaching us to host product launches for them. We had Ernst and Young approach us to do their annual dinner for them, and all of a sudden on the side we had relationships with the guys that could do music, the guys that could do lighting, all these add-on services for events, where we would then mark up and make a cut. And then we became full blown, and it was a very low cost. We didn't have any staff under us. We just had volunteers, which we paid, 50 ringgit a night, so it was a very profitable venture.
I know Lingesh met the founder, the French guy at Global Startup Youth event, and then he launched it. We saw the first. So tell us about drink entrepreneurs. What I mean, it was not just drinking; it was more about networking and how you get into the trenches, meeting with entrepreneurs. You guys did
Absolutely.
some amazing stuff there. A lot of great entrepreneurs came along, talked
Yeah.
to many other entrepreneurs. It,
Yeah.
it is an event, a big event, or rather a kind of like a kind of a networking event where nascent
Absolutely.
new entrepreneurs came to
Yep.
meet more senior entrepreneurs.
Yep.
Senior entrepreneurs came, investors came. Tell us about all these experiences
Yep.
that you guys created the buzz in the
Yep.
startup ecosystem. I know
Yep.
that we all created so many things in the ecosystem. So tell us about the buzz that you created
Yeah.
at
So it,
that
it
time.
wasn't all that rosy at the beginning. What we learned
Yeah.
is the initial crowd that was coming were like interns or like
Uh,
junior associates. And that is when I told Lingesh, hey, if we want to start getting more credibility, we need to start elevating the experience. So he focused on the entire experience of the attendees, like the flow of the event. Where do you line up?
yeah.
Where do you pay? Is everyone happy? What's the temperature like? Where are the
Mhm.
toilets? Like the entire experience. And on my side, I focused on how do we get big partners on board? How do we get Wild Digital on board? Let's do the after party for Malaysia Tech Week. And that is when we started elevating the game. And thankfully, due to some personal networks that we had, we managed to bring in like top tier entrepreneurs to come, which all of a sudden galvanized people to start attending the events. So that's how we actually grew and got traction.
So are you going to make it? Is Lingish? Are you going to make it any bigger when once the everything starts opening up post pandemic?
I think now we have moved towards different priorities. Like I myself,
Okay.
like I've gone into a bit of angel investing. I'm investing in like early stage companies, and of course work takes up like most of my time now. But I'm always interested to meet like budding entrepreneurs who are looking for some angel investment.
You mentioned work, Ganesh. Tell us about your role
Cool.
where do you work now? Tell us deeper, dive deeper. And the
Yep.
topic today is why is it important to have an entrepreneurial mindset in the
Yep.
in the workplace. Let's
Yep.
dive into
Cool.
that. Yeah.
So prior to RHB, just to give some background, so after the whole
Mhm.
KPMG experience, I started doing entrepreneurs, and I started a few more companies. One was an education startup, CVATA, and an ag tech startup called PlanOS. And I did some consulting for Magic, Fave, and then I worked for a scale up, a media company called SportsFix, and then a scale up called Found8 based in Singapore. So all these different experiences working in different types of companies, different types of culture, it really made me understand what makes a company tick, right? And
Tell us about that part. All these startups that you launched,
yeah,
and then all these
yeah,
companies. Tell us about that
yeah.
before you get into the work. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So I'll start with
That exciting. Yeah.
like CVATA. So CVATA is basically we were helping students with career coaching, right? How to prepare proper
Mhm.
resumes, how to ace your interviews, and we were targeting university students. And guess what? We spent 6 months and we got zero revenue. We had all this pipeline of leads, but when it came to closing the deal and signing, everyone had cold feet, or it was just difficult to get things done. And all of a sudden we realized, hey, what if we tackle the high school market? But why would they need resumes, right? They're not applying for jobs, they're applying for scholarships. And that is when I realized, how can we reimagine how a resume should be? So I we switched the script, and we go to the schools. Even though we're co-founders, we don't tell the school principal we're a co-founder. On my sales, on my business card, I'm just a business development manager. So when they see me, they're like, "Wow, if he's a business development manager, I'm pretty sure the
The
founders must be
CFO.
someone big." So we had to create the impression that we are a legitimate company with good pitch deck, good value proposition, and then we positioned it that, hey, what if a resume was a goal setting device, right? I'll ask the students, where do you want to go to university? Oh, I want to go to MIT. What do you want to do? I want to do electrical engineering. Put that in your resume. Put what you envision of yourself in 3 years, and that is what you're going to work towards, right? What do you
Mhm.
need to get there? And that just resonated, right? And we got the PIBG folks on, that's a parent teacher associations on board, and we charged let's 30 ringgit per student. We had 150 students per batch. We target 2 batches in a school. And we were like, hey, how many schools do we have in Negeri Sembilan? 180 schools. So if each school is 9,000 ringgit for one product line, your addressable market is now 1.8 million. We're like, wow, okay, there is a market here, right? Um, and then we started growing the company. And unfortunately, I had some differences with my partner at that time. We just had different directions for the company, and that didn't quite, and we had difficulty scaling the business, right? And with
Yeah.
issues with collections. But that's typical startup challenges, and it wasn't a very scalable business. So I felt like it's time to move on. And then came this other company. It's PlanOS. It's an agriculture technology company. The product is essentially a hardware software solution to help indoor farmers optimize their yield and improve, basically generate insights that can help them um, improve their crops, right? Um, and that was interesting because that was something that I was very interested in. I like the fact that the mission was to democratize precision agriculture to farmers that can't afford it. But that was interesting because we went really far. We were one of 4 startups that was selected as part of this Brink Accelerator in Bahrain. We had $100,000, but when we went there, right, we realized that running a hardware company is not a joke. You really need proper cash flow management. You need to have the right kind of unit economics, and that is something we couldn't breach. Like your cost is typically 250% of your raw materials, right? So at that point of time, I think our cost was $600, which means our selling price should be $1,500. That was the same price as a competitor, GrowLink, which was distributed in 23 countries. And that is when I realized, like, man, I spent 2 years on this project, but I don't think we're gonna get product market fit. And and that is when it's a tough decision, but you gotta just know when to go and know when to fold, right? Like you just gotta know when to stop. And that's when I decided, like, I'm just gonna, go back to the working environment. It's okay if your startups don't work out. That's part of life. And but you can take that experience and bring it to you, back into your working environment. um, so that brings me to Found 8, which was it's a Singaporean-based co-working space, slash corporate innovation firm, slash they had a VC arm as well. So it's like everything you wanted in terms of an ecosystem. I felt it was a dream role, and I had no idea they were hiring actually. So I found out from a friend, and I just decided to reach out to the CEO on LinkedIn. I said, you need to, I gave a list of things that I will do, and I said why I'm the best person for the role, you know. And I didn't get a reply, but I left my contact number then, and then her secretary gave me a call, and I was still in Bahrain at that time, and I started getting on interviews. And so yeah, so I managed to get the role, and it was exciting because we were launching this business in Malaysia from scratch. I've
From
never been in
scratch.
real, yeah, I've never been in real estate. I know nothing about the sales cycles, and the entire process of operationalizing a co-working space. And I just had to study. I spoke to folks who ran different co-working spaces. I understood the economics. I visited 10 different spaces, just to experience the customer experience and take notes on the pricing, take notes on what their USPs are. And it's all about research. If you don't know anything, then just prep. Over prep is always the best way to go. Um, so yeah, we started a business, and I had to hire a team from scratch, and it was amazing. We grew to 50% occupancy in 6 months, and it's a 22,000 square feet space in KL Central. Like,
Yes.
and we were about to close a deal with AirAsia, who had just moved upstairs. They would have taken 40% of my occupancy. At that point, I would have been a 90 within 6 months, and we'll be rolling, right? But guess what? MCO had different ideas. They decided to come in, you know, and it was so sad. Like the day after Asia moved in, that's the day, 18 March, I remember. That I'll never forget. And it was very painful. That's when we had to fight. I'm like, all right, what do we do? Let's set up a work from home guide. Let's come up with a playbook. Let's fight. It's just war, and you just go for it. Be hungry when things are against you. But we were fighting, fighting, fighting. We were still burning, quite a bit of money, and I decided at that point to take a pay cut of like 30%, just so that my team wouldn't have to take any pay cuts. Um, and then I had a friend from RHB, Kai, who's active in the scene, and he told me about this opportunity at RHB. They're looking for someone to drive innovation. And first I told him, no, I have unfinished business at Found 8. But then the market just wasn't improving, and I realized that this is just, it's hard. You're fighting market forces, and it's a great opportunity. And I'm like, I haven't been in a bank. I know nothing about banking. Let's give it a go. Got through all the interviews, got the role, and then I'm in RHB, right? Okay, so now I'm at RHB, and I'm like, cool, I'm hitting up innovation. So what do I do? Where do I start? So my first step, like every management role I had, I used this formula, right? It's this book written by Watkins called The First 90 Days. So it sets you up into how to establish what must you do in your first 90 days, right? How to secure quick wins, make an assessment of the situation, come talk to different types of personas in the organizations. And so I use that playbook, works every single time, and I identified the areas I wanted to have quick wins. So for me, I think the first step was, do we have an innovation strategy, right? And and do we have a shared definition of what innovation means? So that was my first step, right? We're going to start with defining innovation, ensuring that everyone in the organization, the leaders, have a unified understanding of what innovation means. So, we adopted this framework from Gary Pisano, where it buckets innovation into, incremental, disruptive, radical, and architectural innovation. And then from there, we look into the type of innovation. So that's where we look at Dublin's 10 types of innovation, whether it's, improving your processes, your structures, the way you engage with your customers, and 7 other types of innovation. And once that was established, so I'm coming in as an entrepreneur, right? So next step is, okay, what do? We got to ensure that you have a right operating model, you have a right culture, right? Why culture? Because culture eats strategy for breakfast. It's not my saying, it's from Peter Drucker,
Michael
but
Potter. I thought it was Michael Potter. Okay, Peter
oh,
Drucker.
was it
Yeah.
Peter Drucker? Maybe yeah, okay, I could be wrong, but I think it's Peter Drucker. Yeah. And so in the operating model, we looked at 4 components, right? Number one is capacity, number two is capability, number three is processes, and last is incentives, right? So for incentives, we're the first bank in Malaysia where the entire management committee have innovation KPIs in their balanced scorecard, right? And these are cascaded to the one downs and two downs. So now I get calls by these different squad and tribe leads. They'll give me a call like, "Hey Ganesh, what does an MVP mean?" You know, and they have to, right? Because now it's there and it's being tracked, and that was a big win. On the processes side, we established a marketplace because we realized that products were not launched on a timely basis. Because whenever they conceptualize a product, they have to run it with risk. They have to talk to compliance. They have to talk to audit and IT. And after everyone goes, there's a lot of ding dong. It takes a lot of time. So what we did was we established like this marketplace where we can have these conversations during the early stage of product conceptions. We're going to bring in these folks from compliance, audit, risk, and have these teams socialize their ideas at an early stage so that they can get actionable advices to minimize the interactions after. And
How
of
do
course on the
you?
kid.
Sorry, go on. Finish.
No, sorry, go on.
So how do you actually handle the mindset of these bankers to innovate? You know,
Fantastic question. And that
yeah.
is
I just did a big program with a bank, but I just want to know your thoughts
yep,
about moving the mindset. I mean, you may have all the processes and all that in place,
absolutely,
but
absolutely.
absolutely the mindset.
Yeah, so for the mindset, I think, number one, I always ask them, why should you care in the first
Mm.
place? That's the first question, right? Why should they care? I'm coming here, I'm going to just do my job and get paid and go off. I've got two kids at home. Like, I've no intention to go above and beyond to do this, right? Because I don't really care. I've been in the bank for a long time, right?
Yes.
So my first step was always to, I don't want to say create a safe space. I know it sounds very cliche and everyone is going to hate me on it, but that's what I did, but just not calling it a safe space. I didn't verbalize it, call it. I said, hey, we're just going to have these groups. So when I run my innovation lab cohorts, we take people from different parts of the bank, right? Not just from business. We also look at functional because they service internal customers. So internal customers are as important as external customers. And that was something that was not there because a lot of the challenges they faced was actually with internal processes. So
Mm.
so that is what we tried to establish. And I asked them, so are any of you happy to be here? Were you forced to come here? Some of them felt they were forced, and they were being quite disruptive at the start, and some were just there to learn. But ultimately, when we go through this process, this structured, design thinking process with proper facilitation and simplifying the language, right? Like if you look at we have this RHB 7-step methodology. We worked with BCG, they set this up, and the language is a bit complex. Like step one, set up your design challenge. Step two, develop your hypothesis. Step three, validate your hypothesis and surface unmet needs. Step four, synthesize your insights. And I'm like, if you use this language with the average banker, they're gonna get scared. They're like, what is this? So I switched it, right? I said, okay, instead of develop hypothesis, in your design challenge, identify, okay, what's the problem you want to solve? And who are the user you're looking at? Cool. And step two is, what do you want to talk to your user about? What do you want to learn from them? Right? So that is basically developing your hypothesis. And then to validate it, go talk to them. Right? Just go you identify what you want to talk to them, now talk to them. And then after you've talked to them, now make sense of what you spoke to them. Right? So when I verbalize it in a layman's terms, that eases them to do it. And when you give them the right kind of template and you show them how a completed template looks like, and you just tell them, okay, this is the end goal. What do we want? We want to get a pitch deck. You're going to pitch your idea to the management committee, and that's our end goal. All these steps are going to give you the information needed to build that compelling pitch. And that, so what we give them, when you give them orientation and you give them support and you incentivize them, right? And I think that is very key. So we institutionalized this Dragon's Den, right? It's like a Shark Tank where it's an internal funding pool to fund breakthrough ideas. And I was asking myself, right, I came from a startup, where it's okay to take a very little low paycheck, because you can get equity, right? Which potentially, if you exit, it comes to a huge amount. But how do you do that in a corporate environment? You can't give them equity. So what we decided was, hey, what if everyone has a normal BAU bonus, a business as usual bonus you get every year? Now let's set up a new bonus, a variable bonus of up to 6 months, right? And so we set this up and we say, hey, if you want to get the additional 6 months bonus, there are three things you need to achieve. Number one, you need to get your idea funded at Dragon's Den, which will give you 20% of that. Number two, you need to bring your solution to market, which gives you 30%. Number three, you need to achieve the targets that you had set prior, that the agreed targets that you have set with the management to get the remainder 50%. And then we created some marketing materials to communicate. That's very, very important comms, right? Because a bank has 14,000 people. Like you just need to get the word around. And all of a sudden, innovation started becoming mainstream. And then the CEO asked me to take a 20-minute session at the group town hall. And all of a sudden, we started getting a lot of applications. We had 68 inquiries. From there, we had 23 idea submissions, and we qualified those ideas. Now, 4 of them are going into the next innovation labs. So we have our own little funnel. Are we there yet? No, we're very nascent, but we've definitely taken the right steps.
Ganesh, you have really you're creating this startup mindset. Actually, I wouldn't even, in these in a bank, which is a big deal, getting people to understand problems they need to solve and all that kind of things. Did you, those days when we look at banks, we say they understand processes. People come in, clock in time, they do this, and then they go back. They just tick the boxes, whatever they have to do, follow the process, and go back. And now I'm finding that large organizations are saying, hey, you need to cultivate this startup mindset, this entrepreneurial mindset. Like I said, I just did a program, and also with
Yeah.
a bank, and the entrepreneurial mindset is important. Why is it that now corporations are looking at entrepreneurial mindset, and what is an entrepreneurial mindset from an organizational perspective, and how is it relatable to students who are watching this, and why should they, even while they're in university, cultivate that, as a stepping stone towards either entrepreneurial
Yeah.
journey or a corporate job.
Yeah, and so I think when you look at entrepreneurs, right, especially the very successful ones, they have a few key characteristics, right? You will always see the value diversity, whether it's in education, in scale, ethnicity, and there's a culture of embracing failure, right? People are more curious and open. You have an open mindset instead of a specific skill or expertise, right? And there's also a lot of talk about creating a difference, like there's ethics, there's social impact of a company, not just how good the product is. So for me, these are some of the value sets that you get from an entrepreneur. Like we recently hired someone new, and he ran an F&B stall selling chicken, right? He had 3 stalls, he had 10 staff under him, and then of course COVID happened, and now he's coming to a corporate for the first time. But I'm 100% sure this guy with that kind of mindset, he'll figure it out, because they're so used to experiencing failure, and they never take no for an answer, and they just want to go at it. And honestly, that is something you need. And if you have that, it's very easy to make a difference in a corporate. I think a lot of people think that, oh, this is a big needle, you're just a little cog. All it takes, honestly, is communication, right? For example, like, whenever I face any challenges, all I do is, okay, who are the people I need to talk to make this happen? Someone from compliance, someone from retail, someone from digital. Get on the phone, have a chat. And I don't even talk about what I need from them. I say, I just want to get to know you. Tell me about your family. Where do you grow up? Just build meaningful relationships with people. And if you remember that, I always keep notes on the people that I know this guy, he has 3 daughters, he loves to hike on weekends. And I would ask him after a while, hey, have you been hiking? He's like, oh no, I wish I haven't made time for hiking. I'm like, hey, I go to Kiara Trail every weekend. Why don't you come join me one time? And boom, we set up a meeting, and now our relationship is stronger than 95% of the other connections he has in the bank, right? And I'm not doing this. I'm not trying to be. Some people might perceive this. Are you being, manipulative? You're trying to have people fuel your agenda. Hey, my agenda is to help the bank make more money, and we're working together. We're collaborating and building a relationship. It's win-win-win. You know, there's no downside. Like, we just want to create impact. So that, and that is something I realize people don't do. People feel I would rather send emails to and fro, right, and demonstrate sometimes hostility, um, and not get the things they want. Like everything becomes a. So I always start my conversation is like, okay, what is in it for them, right? What does success look like for the people I want to work with? And I ensure that I'm putting their needs first. And if it helps my needs, that's a bonus, right? Because that's one way to build trust. You need to give first in order to receive. um, and 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 that's what entrepreneurs do very well. They love to do barters and they love to help each other, scratch each other's back, and we got you. Trust and loyalty is very important, and I think that is what entrepreneurs can bring when they come into a corporate environment.
Ganesh, you mentioned about embracing failure. How does that how does that fly with corporations like a company, organizations like a bank, with so many people counting uh, the downside, and numbers? So tell me about
Yeah,
that. How do you get people to
yeah,
say, okay, I start this project? I mean, entrepreneurs fail all the time; they pivot all the time,
yep,
and then
yep,
you have this 20, 30, 50 KPI that
yep,
people can get the upside. But what
yep,
happens if, they say that profits are always privatized and failures are socialized?
yep. That's a
It
very
always
that's
happens, right? When big, huge entrepreneurs make profits, it's always private. But when the huge entrepreneurs make losses, then the government and the banks and the
yep.
Fed, everybody has to come and help them.
Come on, yeah.
So yeah, so tell me about this.
All right. I mean, so I think when it comes to embracing, like failure, right? Like the way people operate, the general, I'm saying, of course, there are a lot of game changers in the bank, but the general modus operandi is, if this doesn't work out, I'm putting myself at risk, right? And I always ask them, what are you at risk for? Like, what's going to happen? Like, people don't get fired in large organizations due to incompetence. It's very hard to get, so for me, the best way is to build people up instead of
Mm.
I'll give you an example of where um, there was a case where they were just scared to embrace failure. So we were doing
Mm.
this evening chat to promote innovation, right? And I was talking to the marketing and comms folks, and they were like, "We're going to do a live Kahoot." And Kahoot is this engagement where you put questions and everyone can answer it and get scores, right? And I asked them, let's integrate that just to make sure people are paying attention to the topic points. And they basically said, "Oh, we don't want to do that live, because the last time we did it, no one signed up and it made us look really bad, and so we're not going to do it live, right?" And I told them, "No, let's do it, and I will take full responsibility if it fails." So I wrote them an email saying that, okay, I'm asking and requesting for this. I'm taking responsibility. And when we hosted it, we had 60 people sign up. We had fantastic engagement. And the next time we did it, another evening chat, we had like 90 people sign up. So all of a sudden now there's like, confidence, and they needed to just try. Just because you fail once, maybe you just didn't do it right. Maybe you can try something else. And I'm like, no one's going to get fired if people don't sign up for this Kahoot. So a question I always ask people, what's the worst that could happen, right? And if you
Yeah.
ask yourself that and you can answer that, then, you know, you're good.
Yeah, I guess that there has to be a redefinition of failure as failure equals to learning, and you keep your failure small, and then it becomes a great learning process, and going. So how do you, I mean, what's the end game? I mean, the bank becomes entrepreneurial, and then you hire people, young people who are watching, whether they are from Asia Pacific University or other university, looking at them on entrepreneurial mindset. how would you measure people who come to you to say, okay, I this guy or this girl has an entrepreneur mindset?
Yeah.
You know,
So
I'm
yeah,
sure this innovation process
yeah,
means that you are going to look for people who are entrepreneurial as well, right?
correct. So the thing about the entrepreneurial, I mean, when you say entrepreneurial, I mean they're just more, how should I say this? Um, they're just able to find ways to get stuff done. Like they just
Hmm.
find solutions rather than accept problems. So I think the first step is to first, who's actually interested to make a change. You don't have to
Okay.
be an entrepreneur, right? So that is a barrier. So for example, we had like, about 70 odd people that came in, not including the key value creators, right? That's separate. But these are just folks that they just wanted to get involved. And then we make an assessment. We look at the ideas. Some of the ideas were not validated. It was terrible to look at. But you know what? For me, the first step was actually taking a stab at it and trying your luck, right?
Yeah.
And that shows they were willing to embrace failure. And then we look
Mhm.
into, okay, who has past experience in some of these
Mhm.
skills. If you don't, we'll funnel you into the future skills program. We work closely with RHB Academy. They will equip you with, design thinking, agility, data science, digital marketing, etc. A few 5 core skills, right? And for those that have experience, you'll be like, okay, you guys have a bit more experience, we'll slot you into the innovation labs directly, and then we say, okay, there's a clear pathway for you to get to the Dragon's Den and get that 6-month variable bonus. So what I'm trying to bring to the table is democracy. We're democratizing the way bonus is being paid out. We're democratizing information. We set up an innovation repository. I put best practices, all the most beautiful pitch decks we've created. I'm putting the source files there. Why should we hide it and why should we hug it? It doesn't have to be agile or group strategy that produces the most beautiful pitch decks. We need to everyone to have that capability, right? And we have, and that's what we did, and
Mhm.
now we've come up with MVP submission guidelines, how to do a customer journey map, and and really guiding people through that process. And in that process, they're starting to exhibit entrepreneurial characteristics, right? When they
Right.
overcome roadblocks, they're like, hey Ganesh, I got this roadblock. I tried these 2 things. I don't know what to do. But
Mhm.
I'm like, good. At least you didn't come to me with a problem. You came to me with 2 solutions, and that is the mindset we're trying to drive into the organization. Yeah.
Right. So we will get we'll be having some questions soon, but before we switch
Yeah.
on to opening the questions, I want to ask you, Ganesh. If I put you in front of say 100 first year students, university students, to talk to them about building an entrepreneurial mindset whilst they're at university,
Yeah.
someone who have been an entrepreneur yourself, now you're from the corporate side, advising the students, what would you tell them?
All right. So in terms of the work skills you want to have, right at the top, I would put communication.
Hmm.
Right, communication
Okay.
is number one. Like,
Hmm.
and when I say communication, it's how you tell a story. Understanding storylining, right? How to structure your content, understand slide writing. How do you build a compelling pitch deck? Understand speech. How do you tell a story? Most people would spend a lot of time collecting and analyzing information, but in the end, your audience is interested in the so what for them, right? So effective written communication can help you transform data analysis into a compelling so what for your audience, right? So that's number one. And to if you're like, okay, how do I go about doing this, right? It's so complicated. I would recommend starting with finding frameworks, management consulting frameworks like pyramid principle, issue tree, you know, situation, complication, resolution, all these different kinds of frameworks that are out there. Learn it and use it, or look into Farnham Street, the mental models, right? There's all these different tools that you can use which are free online, and you can try it out and test it. So that's one skill. Number two, you want to have digital tools and technology skills. Like, even if you can't code, you need to be able to be familiar with, like, let's say Google Analytics or Hootsuite, the social listening tools, or HubSpot, which is a sales CRM. You need to learn this, and Excel, PowerPoint are your best friends. If you don't have that, just figure it out. And YouTube is just the best source of information, or Udemy or Coursera, they're free courses. And after that is data analytics. I think is quite important. It doesn't have to be super advanced, but the ability to interpret analysis, visualize it, and communicate. Right? I think
Mm.
that's super important. Whether you're a customer service manager, sales professional, you need this, right? After that, right, so this is where you have business and management skills. So understanding a P&L, right, how to build a team, and so for a P&L, it's just how to set up a balance sheet, income statement, and cash flow, right? Just figure that out. In terms of building a team, there's so many free resources online, and of course, lastly, I would say is design and creative skills. Like I know design thinking has been overused, and but it works, right? And if something works, use it, and use it effectively. If you're not sure, find books and read it. Like there's information is there. I go to this website called pdfdrive.com. You can actually download any PDF you want, and use that, and have sharing sessions with your friends. Maybe today we're all going to try and read this book together, and then we're going to discuss 2 chapters on the weekend, the first 2 chapters. Set up friends that have similar kind of aspirations, similar habits, that are that value achievement, right? I think that's what I would say. Yeah, those 5 skills.
Beautiful,
Yeah.
beautiful. There's someone from the APU asking you, how do you think your background in accounting and finance made you a better entrepreneur? So this would be going back to my first question, which was provocative, to say, how are you even entrepreneurial with becoming and by
Yeah.
being accounting? So I think that's very interesting.
I think the background is, yeah, it helps me with setting up like a P&L, building a basic financial model, but is it a game changer? Probably not. I really don't think what you learn in university is gonna like make a much of a difference. Like I remember when I was doing accounting finance, our case study was at Enron, from 2001. I was like, wow, how is this not? How is my course not updating the case studies? It's like I didn't value it that much, and I feel nothing beats um, coming up with your own curated learning path, you know and identifying, okay, what are the skills I want, where can I source these skills from, right? Like I realized from my past entrepreneurship experience, as an example, that I'm very bad with setting up shareholding cap tables structure, right? Having these difficult conversations with your partners, like it's very sensitive, and sometimes even if someone owes me money, I find it very difficult to ask them, hey, can you pay me back? I'm like, if he remembers you, I'm like the naive guy. And then I realized, that's how you shoot yourself in the foot. You work really hard, and in the end you don't get equity pool that you deserve, and because I didn't try to read up and study it. So now I told myself, okay, I'm going to read this book, Venture Deals. I'm going to study this. I'm going to ensure that I understand it. So the next time I'm setting up a company, I'm going to ensure that this is done properly, and not wait after 6 months of running a business together before setting up a shareholding structure, as an example. um, Hope that answers the question.
So this thing is interesting. You said that someone needs to create or craft their own path towards in their own learning. So these university students are there; they are learning. Some of them are actually pursuing some really interesting uh, courses. I mean, and also, I mean, we have great lecturers and
Yeah.
in accounting and finance
Yeah.
in Asia Pacific University, as well as in APU with enterprise at APU, we
Yep.
actually encourage everyone to come in to participate in the entrepreneurial journey, right?
Yep.
Or pursue their entrepreneurial ambitions.
Yep.
So, so how would a student know what kind of how would they create this menu of programs that they want to craft? Like you are I can see that you are a, they say about entrepreneurs, they learn do instead of learn,
Yeah.
and then so how do they become that mindset of learn do and
Yeah.
creating small
Yeah.
small wins?
Yeah. So I think, okay, to your point on the on look at your undergrad as, okay, this is an area which I'm going to specialize in, right? And that is
Mhm.
useful in it by
Yeah.
itself, because that guarantees you a job, right?
Hmm.
But to become an entrepreneur, then you look at, okay, what are the skill gaps that I have, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if I have a skill gap in terms of numbers, if I cannot solve this skill gap, can I bring
Mm-hmm.
in a partner that can help me solve that, bridge that gap? If I'm not
Mm-hmm.
a tech expert, can I bring in a partner who can bridge that gap? So that
Okay,
is how
okay.
that is how you set up your co-founding team, right? So I
Mm.
think there's a question here: would it be better for an entrepreneur to be advanced in a specific knowledge, or better to know everything in general? So I think it depends on the company that you're building, right? If you're building a pure tech company, obviously you need to have very specific knowledge in, let's say, product management, UI, UX, etc., right? But if you're building, let's say, um, a typical brick and mortar business, then you need to have a general understanding of finance, HR, and you know and it also depends on the team. Are you doing this together? So I think every business has the same amount of knowledge that you need, like in terms of the rough skills, right? Like I mentioned, like business management, digital tools, communication. Those are like any business you run, you're going to have those kind of same skills, right? um, and so that it would be your base. Anything plus would be, let's say you go to Lee Wagon and you do a web development course there in Ruby Rails, and all of a sudden you realize, wow, cool, I understand the concepts of programming, which helps it when I'm communicating with developers, right? And that is what I've been very cognizant of. I realize my technical knowledge is pretty weak. So what I've done, like let's say in the bank, I'll ask for product teams to send me their product papers. I'll just read it, try and understand, cloud architecture. And I might not be an expert, but I'll just call people and ask them, hey, I don't quite understand this. Can you help me? You know, and understanding those gaps and creating a solution for it. That is what you need to do. Yeah.
Yeah, I think yeah, that's really interesting. I think to add to your insightful answer, I would say I think all entrepreneurs or everyone getting into the workforce for Trinendo, you got to be T-shaped, right? You got to have the broad base, and then you have to have
Broad
depth.
base, and then yep,
Yeah,
yep,
yeah.
yep,
So
yep,
a T-shaped profile is always important. Depth in a
absolutely.
specific area and general knowledge in the other area. So you, like what Ganesh said earlier, you can become a sense maker, connecting
Yep,
the dots, making sense of situations. That's
exactly.
that's very interesting.
Yep.
And so moving forward, Ganesh, would you be? Oh, there's more question. Since you have
Yeah.
some experience in startups, what will be the knowledge that a newbie needs to have to run a business?
Okay, so the knowledge part is pretty much similar to what I've. Let me add one more point, right? I think there's a point which I missed. Now, most of you would have made a bunch of friends. You have your own personal networks, right? So the average person probably has 600 friends on Facebook, and he has 150 contacts that he sort of has a relationship with. And of course, your very close circle might be 5 people. So think about that 150 connections that you have, right? What if you could set up like a personal CRM, right? And you map out all these names here. What do they do? What industries are they in? Let's say, okay, this guy's in agriculture, this guy's in finance, this guy's in PR. And all of a sudden, let's say you have an idea, right? And you use this little Excel you build and you start filtering. Oh, my idea is in agriculture, right? Okay, who in my contact is from there, right? And I need a marketing person. Okay, filter marketing, boom, and you start creating a list of people that you can then approach and have a chat with. So I think setting up that personal CRM, like I have a very not a very clean CRM, but I'm looking to improve it. But I think that's a game changer because it makes it easier for you to then, if you need to find potential partners, or it makes it easier to locate them. Yeah,
Ganesh,
that's a big.
I'm going to take you out of your RHB for
Yeah,
a while and
cool.
put you
Take me
back
out.
put you back in the startup ecosystem. So you were working with Foundate, and Foundate was very much like a confluence of all the startups coming there. There were so many events
Yeah,
there. You've seen entrepreneurs working close up. You've observed founders coming there, sitting down, having coffee, talking, and all those things, events and all that. What was your impression as of the startup ecosystem that you were in? What was your main key takeaways? What did you see? Uh,
so
Share that with us.
yeah, so I think one thing that you can observe, if I'm like a big time investor, hopefully one day in the future, I would run a co-working space, because you can see how people work. I know the companies that are going to do well versus the companies that are going to go down to the ground, just by seeing how the teams work together, what time do they get into office. Walking by the offices, I'm seeing some of the guys are gaming, you know, and you can see some teams that have different kind of culture where they have a hybrid workforce. They give flexibility to the teams, and these teams are doing well, and it's for me that was very eye opening. Like I had it was sad to see some of the companies fail, but we always were there to support them. And some of the companies thrived, and I think running a co-working space, you see the ins and outs, you see the challenges that they face, and it's not easy. It's not an easy path to take, and it requires a lot of courage, a lot of belief, because people will look down at you, right, if you're not doing well. They only showcase the success stories, like Kasam, Fave. No one talks about all the other entrepreneurs that are struggling. And all of a sudden, let's say if I was like, let's say 25, right, and I started going into entrepreneurship at 21, and I would then look at my peers who have progressed really far in the corporate sector, and I'm like, I'm nowhere. And a lot of entrepreneurs go through that struggle between going back to the workforce thinking that, oh, this is it, I've lost my chance. But a lot of people come out stronger from that. So I think if you want to get into entrepreneurship, understand that you must be willing to sacrifice. It sounds cool, but you need to be able to grind through. Yeah.
Mm. No, but what are the other observations you find about the
Oh,
startup ecosystem itself? About
yeah.
um, about the support entrepreneurs give to each other, or
Yeah.
all the
Yeah.
other things that was going on here.
So I think the community aspect is very important, right?
Hmm.
And cultivating that, allowing the teams. And what we realized, there were a lot of different startups that were supporting each other in different ways, right? One of the companies, let's say it was a PR firm, and then they would give their services to these other companies at a discount, just so that and then these startups will then recommend their services to other startups. So there was a lot of that interrelationship, leveraging on each other's um, benefits and advantages, right? And so I think that was really powerful, and we also had sharing sessions where we invited senior entrepreneurs to come in and talk. We invited VCs to come in. So we had like like this speed dating, investor speed dating, which was sponsored by AWS, where
Hmm.
investors flew down from Singapore and from KL to just meet a range of different companies. And so yeah, so I think that is really important, because that gives you that drive. If your surroundings are people that are not entrepreneurs, that don't understand the challenges that you go through, it's very easy to give up. But when you're in this environment, it just invigorates you like shit. And we used to do this monthly newsletter where we would feature startups that have certain milestones, right? So then it sort of motivates when they see a company, wow, they just closed a funding round. We need to we need to push harder. Or they might just say, hey, how did you guys do it? Like we're still raising funds ourselves. So yeah, that is the power of community. Like it really makes a huge difference. Yeah.
Right. So what are so putting you back in the innovation lab? What are some of the challenges that you face in running an innovation lab,
Yeah.
and what is this innovation lab? Is it just is a space that you have, or
Yeah.
is it a kind of a community, or how does that work?
Yeah. So we call it RICE. It's the RHB Innovation Community of Excellence, because we want to make rice
Right.
the staple diet for RHBNs. So it's all about creating a funnel, right? As they go through the innovation labs, this is where they go through a structured design thinking methodology, where we take them through the challenge mapping and right up to prototyping and presenting their preparing a business case and presenting their pitch, right?
So
And along
it's
the way,
almost like a sandbox inside RHP.
and not a sandbox. That's what we're looking to do next year. I won't talk too
Oh,
much about
wow.
it. Yeah, that's
Okay.
that's a separate initiative. But this is more where we want to drive them to drive solutions to help their own help them achieve their KPIs faster, right? Because what happens in a corporate, everyone is focused on harvesting fruits, and my question is, hey, what if you spend 20% of your time learning how to harvest better, right? And that is where we bring them through these labs. And what we learned is some of the big challenges is that people's motivation is high at the beginning, but then it sort of wavers and it goes up and it wavers down, right? The participation and engagement level is not that high across the board because it's tough, man. You're doing this over 6 to 12 weeks. You just got to grind every week on top of your work. So what we did this year was, we came up with many different awards to reward and encourage them, and we featured them. I get all the management committee members, the chief strategy, chief executive officer, chief digital officer, to give out these awards, and we'll put their faces on the spotlight, and then we'll do a nice, everyone takes a selfie and take a screenshot, and we blast it out. We start marketing it, right? And so what we did, some of the awards we created was like Sherlock Holmes Award for best at finding insights, in one of our exercises. Oprah Winfrey Award for best at interviewing. The Obama Award for the best leader, and we give them monetary rewards for this, and we give them recognition. And this has really changed the game, because all of a sudden everyone's now is pumped up, like throughout the labs. They're like, yo, I want to show that I can do something, you know because initially we saw that in every lab only 2 people or 3 people would do the work for all 6 or 7 of the team members. It's like the 80-20 principle. 20% of them are doing 80% of the work. And that's when we felt like, okay, we're going to recognize these individuals that are doing most of the work. And then when we do the subsequent cohort, we ensure after every lab day, we have 6 lab days. After every lab day, we do a retrospective. What could be better? How can we improve the template? How can we improve engagement? And we take this actionable feedback and we bring it into the next cohort of labs. So we ensure that every time we're constantly getting better and better and better. That's the goal, continuous improvement.
Very interesting. So you are creating basically very much startup labs inside the
Absolutely.
inside a corporation. So why did RHB decide to go into this kind of initiative? From a traditional bank to getting into this getting a young guy like you, pulling you from the startup ecosystem, putting you there and saying, "Hey, go build stuff."
So I think, so I think I was sort of just fortunate, right? I mean, I didn't have the banking credentials for the role. I had a lot of things stacked against me to even get the role. But for me, I think I always lead with transparency, culture of candor. Like, that's number one. If you're transparent with people, if you share, if you have showcased that you have the best intention for them. Like, there were many times where, for example, the teams would get a check-in by their portfolio owner, which, let's say the chief human resource officer comes in to see how the HR team is doing. I would tell him that, the team were interviewing people on the weekends. They were really working hard. Even if that might not be completely true, I always made them look good in front of their superiors, because then they feel like, wow, thanks Ganesh for doing that for me. And I'm like, okay, I did that for you. Can you make sure that you kill this and do it, really do the best you can do, right? And so it's like that's how I motivate them, and that has resulted in a lot of happiness because of transparency and creating value for each other.
Ganesh, I would like to ask, what is your greatest advice in building trust between team for new startups?
Yeah, so number one is have difficult conversations at the very beginning, right? So when it comes to shareholding structure, when it comes to expectations, how much time are you guys willing to commit, right? And what happens if you're unable to commit to the time? Like just set these type of ground rules at the very, very beginning. And the moment something feels off, right, immediately escalate it. Don't keep things hidden, unresolved tension, unless that's with your partner, your but you don't want to be doing that with your business partner. You want to really have that communication, over communicate if necessary.
Yeah, I guess building trust is a work in progress. You got to keep on being transparent, keep on having the open conversation going. I don't think it is.
It's not a one-time thing. It's
not a one-time thing. Trust
exactly.
You got to keep shaping it and keep talking and keep doing. A lot of experience goes, a lot of energy goes into that, and I think it's a great investment in building that. So tell us, Ganesh, out of work, what do you do? How do you keep How do you have fun? What else do you do to keep your juices flowing, keep your innovation mindset moving? What else do you do? To get that.
I mean, I think like I'm just going to talk a little bit about Dash, right? Like, so
Oh, okay.
he really inspires me. He's got a amazing wife, amazing children, and the fact that he's in his 50s and he can swim 5 kilometers or 10 kilometers without fail, can do a handstand, like that for me is like super inspired. Like I really admire that. So for me, like what's really important is really having a set of values. So if you do a values test, right, identify what are your dominant and minor values, just to understand yourself, right, and then ensure that your daily actions are aligned to your values, right. So for me, it's being grateful, being resilient, a sense of achievement, culture of candor and empathy, right. Those are my values, and I try and make sure that in my day to day that I'm demonstrating that. um, and when you have that, when you have these kind of habits, um, don't do too many things at one time. Like I did that before. I was trying to do an ice bath every week. I did a flotation tank once every 2 weeks. I was doing my one meal a day fasting. I was, trying to the 6 a.m. routine. I did all of this. And one day my body just shut down. I did an ice bath and I passed out like 5 minutes after. And that's when I realized I was pushing myself so hard and I wasn't enjoying the process. Right.
Right,
And
right,
and then I started realizing, hey, habits should be stacked. Maybe first week just do walks, right? And once you do that well, you can add another thing on top, right? If you do those two well, you can add another thing on top. If you don't achieve those three things, don't go any further. So that habit stacking is something important. And for me, what I really love is like I love fitness. That's something I'm passionate about. I'm passionate about board games. I'm a competitive chess player. um, and now I'm getting into I'm learning a little bit of poker. And so those are the things that I enjoy, and of course reading. um I think that those are the things I spend my free time on, I would say.
Yeah, that's no, that's very interesting what
Yeah,
you're saying about stacking your habits, and you said you're a competitive chess player. I
yeah,
want to I want to dig a bit deeper into that because that's very important for young students who are studying. They have a lot of loads on them, and they're constantly studying, and then they have to build this entrepreneurial mindset. And we've talked about work, going into why it is important to build an entrepreneurial mindset when you go to work. So this thing about mental health, and all that goes with it, which
yeah,
is a very crucial part, right?
yeah,
How is that? You have anything to say in that area? How do students manage that?
yeah,
And how do you, because you are very much in the age group where
yeah,
you're young, and
yeah,
tell us about that.
yeah.
And you're not supposed to have told my age just now, but that's okay. I'll let you go. I want to tell everyone that I dye my
Yeah.
hair white to make myself look wise, so that's okay.
So I mean, so that's a fantastic question, and I, like when I first joined, took up this role, I had a severe case of imposter syndrome, and I really felt like maybe I wasn't qualified, but that actually motivated me to wanna, you know, really over
Dive
prepare.
deeper. Tell us
Yeah.
about the imposter. Tell us what is an imposter syndrome. A lot of people are throwing that around, and tell the
Yes.
viewers what it
So
is.
so an imposter syndrome is where you don't feel you're qualified to be there, and you feel like an imposter that is hiding, and one day someone's going to open the door and think that you're a fraud, and that's always been a fear of mine. I still battle it once in a while here and there. There's always going to be a bit of anxiety. There's always going to be times where you doubt yourself. But I think ultimately, the game changing thing, I'm not trying to preach here, but like daily habits solves these things, right? So when I wake up in the morning, first thing is I do meditation. I have this app called Smiling Mind. It's free. You can check it out. It's developed by an Australian company, and it's meant for a public service health. And I wake up to that, and it says, may today be a good day, and it gets you in that mood. and then I start with like, all right, what would make today great, right? And like, okay, what are these things? You can look up 5 minute journal, which might get stale after a while, but you can always mix it up on your own, right? Just be creative, um, and then do a little bit of stretching or exercise, right? And after you do a bit of stretching, for sure, tell yourself, okay, I'm just gonna do a short 10 steps of walking outside. But it never stops at 10 steps, right? From 10 steps, you end up doing 3 kilometers, and no one has ever felt horrible after a workout, right?
Yeah,
And when you
absolutely.
yeah, and when you start your morning like that, like a champ, all of a sudden, like, hey, if I don't work out in the evening, I'm feeling lazy, it's okay. I hit it in the morning, right? Instead, on some days where you skip it and then you feel like, oh man, I want to drag myself, which is, so I think starting your day on the right foot is very important. And if you don't, let's say you don't start your day on the right foot, you had a late night with some friends, it's okay, right? It's all good. What you do is then take maybe an afternoon nap during lunch. Make sure you recharge. Like I just bought this ring. It's called the Aura ring, so it tracks my readiness and my sleep and my activity, and it's good. It's like a little thing that keeps you on track. It tells you, hey Ganesh, you didn't rest enough. you know, you need to sleep a bit early the next day. And everyone needs a
Right.
reminding tool once in a while. So I think that puts you in the right kind of mental wellness state. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really important for a lot of students. And actually, going back to the imposter syndrome, I think eventually all of us will be somewhat imposters because the world is constantly moving and you're constantly have to catch up. You're constantly learning, and I think that's okay. To be a beginner all the time, to be a learner, to have the
Absolutely.
beginner's mind, and this is what in the Zen tradition they say you always have the beginner's mind, not necessarily the expert mind, which then
Yeah.
becomes imposter because
Yeah.
you're put in a new area, right? So
Yeah.
that's really interesting. And what are your other advice for people who are doing startups in universities? You know, we have a few more minutes, and then we will call it out.
Yeah.
12 more minutes.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah,
In fact, if you can find a solution that solves your immediate university friends, where you can actually test it out, if they're like your target market, let's say you come up with, hey, I'm going to come up with a new energy drink to rival, Red Bull. I'm going to make sure this energy drink is targeted at the gaming community, which is massive, right? In like I remember I was like a Dota addict back in university, right? And I played all kinds of games because that's a time where that's how you bond. So if you could create like a solution like that where you can immediately test it with your target audience and get them to pay for it, all of a sudden you're like, wow, I got my first paying customers, and what can come out of it. So I think university is the best time to do it. Um, and if you have time, go for it. Yeah, it's a yeah, that's what I would advise. Yeah.
right. And but there's a lot of them say, okay, they do not have enough resources, financial resources to do startups.
Yep.
Although we say otherwise, right? They
Yep.
don't really need much. But what's your? I mean, they don't have money. They say, oh, I do a startup. I need to go and test it. And you say, test it. How do I
Yeah.
test it? Those kind of
Yep.
questions.
So I think if you look at my example, right, like when I was doing this whole rental car, I didn't have money to rent these cars, but I found someone that had deep pockets, you know.
Mhm.
And then when I was doing tutoring, that just required time. It's how much time you spend equates to the amount of money you can get. So find a very low. If you have an idea, find the cheapest way to test it, right? In
Mhm.
fact, many times you can even test something by just doing a qualitative interview with them and having an assessment on what they would think about your solution and getting their feedback. And I think just having that mindset, right? Like, of course, if you don't have money, then don't aim for, oh, I'm going to build like something that's going to cost a media tech platform, right? Like, be reasonable. So pick an idea within your means and find a cheap way to test it.
Right. Right. You said you are a boy. You're a Seremban boy, and then
Yeah.
you've come to Kuala Lumpur
Yeah.
and making it here.
Yeah.
So a lot of the students are also from small town. They're coming up to
Yep.
a big city and
Yep.
making a change here, And what do you have to say about that?
I think that's, like for me, my first job, I was taking the bus every day from Srimban to KL, 6 ringgit, SKS scale,
Oh my
and
God.
and I would take the bus at 6 a.m. and I would get in there at 7:30, and you know but my motivation in the bus, I would see a lady, she's been taking the bus for 20 years, and I'm like, I don't want to be in this bus 20 years from now. you know and but for me, that really built groundedness. I feel people from small towns, they tend to have um they're not as like judgmental, they're not as I'm being biased against urbanites, but generally the folks that I've met were more grounded, more down to earth, um, and they have very good people skills for some reason,
Yeah.
right? I'm totally generalizing. I don't have any evidence to back it up. I'm just giving you a rough. So for me, in my case as well, like I started staying in KL and I started building my networks, and all of a sudden, like people didn't think that I was from a small town. They just thought, wow, where did you go to school? Did you go to one of the Ivy Leagues, or did you go to, they thought I was a Garden International schoolboy and stuff like that, and they were shocked. Oh, you went to public school? I'm like, guys that go to public school, they they know the
Ah,
hustle.
yes, they know the
So
hustle. They're the street smart ones, right?
street smart. Yeah, you
Yeah.
gotta, So I think that is a bonus, actually, I would say, you know.
Mm.
And but just be hungry, lah. Just be hungry, and if you're feeling, yeah, just be hungry.
How do you build that hunger, Ganesh? When you say, be hungry, what does that look like for these students? A lot of them, yeah.
So look at the people around you, who you spend your time with, who are the folks that you spend your time with, and why do you spend your time with them? I think just understand that, and are their values aligned to yours, right? Then you can make this. I'm not saying you, hey, forget friends just because they don't have anything, or pick friends. Like, it's not like that, right? It's just understanding that if you have people that have the same kind of values, the same kind of, if you're into entrepreneurship, find someone that has that same kind of values. Like if I'm into fitness, I surround myself with guys that have done triathlons, guys like Dash, that is just phenomenally fit, right? Because I feed off them. I get inspired. I'm like, if he can do it, why can't I? Right? Because that gives you that sense of belief. Because and that's really important, I think, for you.
When an old dog can do it, why can't you? Is that what you're trying to tell me, man?
that's what
Ganesh?
that's what that's what I tell my friends when I go. Like, I'm scared of deep water. I'm scared of
Okay.
heights. But I've got an advanced PADI license. I've gone skydiving. Because I think there's this famous Will Smith. He talked about fear. At the maximal point of fear is, I can't
I've
remember what
done.
it was, but it was
I've done.
beautiful.
Yeah, yeah. No, I've done skydiving. I've gone up 14,000 feet and jumped off a plane.
Yeah, yeah,
Actually,
yeah.
I did that I took all my three children up and I made all of
Fantastic.
them jump with me, and they
Yeah,
all jumped and they were just
yeah,
excited about the whole thing. And that
yeah,
was really good. I think they still talk about that kind of an experience,
yeah,
about to say, but the entrepreneurship is not about jumping off the plane or
yeah,
jumping off. That's not the kind of big risk that you take, right? You take risk that you can afford to lose, but
yeah,
you need the kind of a gumption to do that.
yeah. Calculated risks. Let's call it calculated
Calculated,
risk.
calculated risk. Yeah.
Yeah,
So we've
yeah.
got 5 minutes more. I'll let you say. I would like to ask you this question. What is there something that you have always believed in when you were younger that you don't believe anymore?
Something I always believed in when I was younger that I don't
Something
subscribe to.
something that you believed in now you don't subscribe to it anymore.
All right, this is a tricky one. You might need to
It's,
edit this out.
I
So
want to
I
edit
was
your
very
life, man. Your life. Your
so
life.
I was a very staunch, I was pretty religious, and now I'm not so religious, not at all, actually. But I believe in people. I believe in progress. I believe in humanistic values. I believe in science and reason, and I believe that all of us are humans. We're all equal. I might not believe in any god, but I do believe in people, and I believe we're we're lucky to be here. And it's an opportunity, and we should take this, this opportunity of life and not have it, and not just worry about petty things, or like, oh, this person didn't call me back. I mean, we're stuck on this blue ball in the middle of, it's pretty crazy when you think about it, and I think it brings that sense of humility. Some of my friends disagree, like, hey, you don't believe in anything, but for me, it really made me appreciate the people around me, especially my friends. When I get to your 30s, actually, that's when it happens. You start valuing relationships, and time becomes a scarce resource, right? So my advice is, of course, enjoy your 20s, but cultivate those relationships,
Right.
and
You're not in your 30s yet.
I'm 31, yeah.
Oh my God. Here you are,
I think there's this amazing quote by Carl Sagan, right? The cosmos is within us. We're made of star stuff, and we're a way for the universe to know itself. For me, he's an amazing character, and his words has so much depth to it. Carl Sagan. So yeah, I
I
mean,
grew
you're
up watching
lucky,
Carl Sagan.
Cosmos,
Yeah.
right? You grow up. Wow, that's so yeah. I mean, just think about, like don't worry about the future, stay in the present, appreciate people around you. Do have that beginner's mindset, like you don't know everything, and be humble, be kind, spread knowledge, help people, right? And that's what Dash does. Like, he just asked me randomly. I said yes, I'm coming, because I've seen him help so many people. Like, I had a horribly busy day today. I was like, no, it's okay, it's like whatever. Dash, I'm gonna do it for Dash, right? And you will have that as you build that
But
with
I was
people.
stressed, Ganesh, when you didn't reply my WhatsApp. I was so stressed. So you said don't be stressed by petty things, but I was stressed by petty things. Oh my God, Ganesh didn't reply me. Then I knew you were busy.
But yeah, I mean, so, and you guys have got, I think a great, I think the fact that the university is doing this, I think is very powerful. You've had 10 sessions, and you can revisit this for information. I think it's great. I think you guys have a good foundation here at APU.
Yeah, I think APU is doing great about
Yeah.
on the entrepreneurial part.
They
We
did not
just
ask me to say that, by the way. I'm just being
no,
honest.
absolutely. No. That's true. That's true. No, yeah. No, actually, to be honest, I work with a great team. Just a This is a plug-in, not just advertising for Asia Pacific University.
Yeah.
I actually came in May as an entrepreneur in residence, and I was worried about how am I going to work with this bunch of academics and turning them into becoming entrepreneurial. I was blown by their energy, blown by their
Amazing.
commitment, blown by
Yeah.
what they can do. And they make me feel like I lack energy because these people have the gung ho, the can do mojo to want to build entrepreneurial DNA in the university.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying that it's actually a complete reservoir of smart people in
Yep.
the lecturers, as well as the energy they bring in. And we are going to run the startup. This is it. This is very important. We are going to run startup weekend this weekend, and it's all
Amazing.
being done by the lecturers who
Yeah.
have jumped in and creating the online community. And we've just launched the entrepreneur um, club, e-club for students as well. And
Fantastic.
students, I would encourage the students to jump in and be part of the e-club, and then you all can bring
Yeah.
entrepreneurs into the game. Last question, Ganesh, before I let you go to have your continue with your evening, is if you had a billboard where thousands of people are going by every day, and you have one thing to say to the world, what would that be?
Be kind.
That's awesome. Just
Yeah.
like the Dalai Lama says.
Yeah, I'm not trying to sound like a preacher, but just be kind, man. Just be good to people, and good will come to you. Yeah.
Absolutely. Ganesh,
Yeah.
Mr. Ganesh Mahendranathan, Thank you so much for spending 90 minutes with us. And thank
Amazing.
you for inspiring all the students that are here. Thanks for inspiring me. And
Hey, you're
all
my
the best.
inspiration.
All the best. No, 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 no. You are just being all the best. Have a great time at RHB.
Thank you.
Keep in touch with us. We'll call you again to tell us.
Yeah,
And if you're hiring
we
innovative
are.
people,
Please.
hire APU students.
So
They are
I
the
I
best.
heard I heard that Accenture has been, they've been hiring a lot of APU graduates. So let's have some come RHB's way. So if anyone's
That's right.
interested,
That's right.
Dash
That's
is going to
right.
create a pipeline.
That's right. That's right. We are creating a pipeline of entrepreneurial people
I would love that.
and all that. Yeah. Okay. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, Ganesh. For
Thanks.
all the students who are here who wants to have your certificate of attendance, please scan in your barcode uh, and um, and have a great enterprise. Have a great Wednesday evening, and do join us for the startup weekend that's happening on Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday. We've got a great bunch of mentors there for you. We've got a great bunch of speakers as well as judges. There's prizes for you as well. You can't go wrong with Startup Weekend on this Friday. Once again, a big thank you to Mr. Ganesh
Thanks.
Mahendranathan from RHP, who is driving innovation at RHP. We wish you all the best, Ganesh. We
Thank
hope
you.
you showcase some great innovation at RHP. Thank you so much.
Pleasure is mine. All right. Take care, guys. Have a good one.
Take care.
Enjoy your
Cheers.
evening.
Bye
Bye.
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 Cheers. Bye.